Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
All right. Happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. Sam Bushman live on your radio. Hard-hitting news the networks refuse to use, no doubt, starts now. This, my fellow Americans, is the broadcast for April the 28th in the year of our Lord 2025. This is our one of two, and the goal always to protect life, liberty, and property, to promote God, family, and country, to do so on your radio in the traditions of our founding fathers, using the supreme law of the land, the Constitution for the United States of America as our guide, rejecting revolution. Unless it's a Jesus revolution, then we're in, because we follow the Prince of Peace. Welcome to the broadcast. Hope y'all had an absolutely fantastic weekend. Dr. Scott Bradley's with me, author of To Preserve the Nation and the weekly Q&A Constitution webinars available at freedomsrisingsun.com. Doctor, welcome back, sir.
Well, good morning to all, and starting off with a fresh week it's got fresh air, and we'll just have to see what we can make of it.
Well, there's a lot going on in the news, and a lot of people are making of a lot of things. Everybody's trashing Donald Trump on every, fault line they can find, and his 100 days, he's doing horrible, his ratings are low, everything's a meltdown, and that's what they want to claim. I don't believe that at all. I believe there's some serious concerns, but I also believe there's some wonderful things happening, and RFK Jr. at the center of some of that. There's an interesting article out. It's all from UPI, United Press International News Service, UPI.com. And the headline says this, Dr. Bradley: ultra-processed foods tied to 124,000 premature deaths over 2 years in the United States, study finds, UPI.com. So this isn't even RFK Jr. necessarily, although he's probably involved in some way or another. But we're starting to see more, I don't know what you want to call it, truth-telling about some of these things. So ultra-processed foods, RFK Jr. saying we got to get rid of the dyes in these different foods. I agree. Some countries have already banned the dyes. So, you buy a cereal box in the United States versus a cereal box in Canada. They're different. The dyes in America are these artificial ones. The dyes in the Canadian box of cereal, as far as I understand, they use different fruit juices to give it some of the color, and the colors aren't quite as vivid, and it looks different. So it's weird if you're not used to it, but really it's a lot more healthy. And I'm not really for the general government making laws regarding food and what you can put in it and everything else, but the battle heats up, and 124,000 people prematurely dead because of what they call, and the term they use for this is ultra-processed foods. First off, your thoughts, Doctor?
I'm not sure of the specifics of what they're doing, but I'm pretty confident that what America basically has as their diet is chemicals and flavorings. I mean, there's, very often you say, oh, we got something nutritious here, but you look at, you can't even pronounce the blasted stuff that's in the ingredients, and it's, to me, the farther we've gotten away from, the farm, if you will, and the more we've put, our chemistry set in the middle of it, and what it does, it creates something that's kind of, pleasantly colored, has a texture that you kind of think might be a little bit good. The flavors are enhanced by all sorts of, chemicals and dyes and the whole thing seems to me like we have been poisoning ourselves forever. Now, of course, probably for the last 55 years, we've tried to, keep as close to the origins of the food as we can. But
when you say we, you mean hard. You in your family, not society,
right.
Though.
Oh, no. Yeah, you're right. That's a good clarification. I think our society, by and large, I don't know how many dozens of weird chemicals are even in French fries nowadays, or in a hamburger. And there's a lot of people that say, oh, Trump's against the farmer because Europe won't let the farmers peddle our stuff there. European Union, well, we got all sorts of stuff we've sprayed the soil with that's been absorbed, in fact genetically modified some of the stuff that we're growing so that it works with the poisons we put on the soil. I mean, it goes kind of along with the idea in the scriptures that, in the end times, we're going to find that there's a great many poisons that are afflicted upon us. And I don't limit it. Okay, I'll broaden it, but we don't have to go this broad. I think we're being polluted by poisons that are philosophical even. The education
there's no
system.
question about that. That's a different topic, but you're right.
It is.
We're being peddled propaganda on every front. Here's the question, though. Is it the general government's responsibility to decide what goes in? Let's say that I decide I'm going to make my own food. Let's say that Sam Bushman designs his own cracker. They say, Sam Bushman, you're a crazy cracker, so there you go. Sam Bushman crackers, SB crackers. And so I put whatever I want in my crackers. Does the general government have the authority or the right to tell me, hey, you can't put that in there?
No.
No.
I mean, the quickest...
So on one hand, I'm not for all this in our food. On the other hand, I'm not for the federal government telling us what we can put in our foods. How do we reach kind of a balance here?
Well, first of all, let's just point out something that should be readily apparent nowadays, is that in their claim to be able to regulate our food and our medicine and everything like that, the government really has been asleep at the switch, and they've completely blown that assignment, which is what they generally do when they usurp power in a general area, a given area, any area that was not delegated constitutionally to them. They screw it up. They make a mess of it, and so they have absolutely, I think, been destructive of our food, our drugs, or anything that we're ingesting at all by this industry capture of the whole process. The pharma companies put somebody, into the FDA, and they get their latest greatest poison, approved. We give them a pass. We never let them be liable for any of their unsafe or even destructive processes they've got in there. Really, it's been running cover for big profit stuff. I always say the two biggest profit industries in the world are war and pharma. And the pharma thing, I think, is a subset of the food stuff. I mean, you think of some of these things that come in packages that we eat for snack food. Sam, their nutritional value, I think it's ground up cardboard with flavorings and chemicals in it. I mean, it's horrid.
Well, if it was just that, it wouldn't be as harmful. So it's worse than that, but your point's well taken, right? And I would say this, we need to really realize that it's the separation from the land. Listen carefully to what I'm saying, people. It's the separation from the land that the general government has fomented and forced and pushed on us that is really the problem. People have left their farms. Even I get that everybody's not a farmer. Somebody might be a barrel maker. Somebody might be a shoemaker. Now, I know you say, well, that's old style, Sam. I know, but people can be a web developer or whatever. You don't have to all be farmers, but we need to learn to have farm co-ops. We need to learn to have, hey, you could get 25 people that have an area in their community where they have a big, huge community garden, and some people can work on it, and some people can just pay a fee and reap the benefits of it and be the financial supporters of it. And, back in the day, everybody was close to the land, and there was two big changes when they're close to the land. Number one, they grew their food and they knew what was in it. And when I say grew their food, I mean they had cows for milk, they had cows for meat, they had grains, or they grew different things, and oftentimes they didn't do everything, so they'd swap with their neighbors, and you know what, I'll get you eggs, and you get me, a beef cow whenever I need to fill my freezer full of meat, and someone else is like, hey, you know what, this guy's a potato farmer, he's got all the potatoes he can handle, let's work out a deal with him, and everything was pretty grassrootsy, everything was local, and you knew what was going on, and whether you were a farmer or not, but we've allowed us to separate ourselves from the land. That's number one, and I think that's a huge problem, and one of the solutions is that we need to return to the land. And everybody can do this if they choose to. You got to move out of the big corporate high-rise city world, and you got to move to places where this stuff is being done. People are creating communities of barter, communities of free association, communities of this is happening. This is not a dream. This is really happening. And more people need to do that because it's one of the great solutions. And then you take big pharma off your table. You can do this. And that's number one, separation from the land. Number two, the founding fathers were very, very worried about and concerned about big, huge corporate business, international business. Because international business has control on their mind. They want to control the people. What better way than to get them all sick and dependent on strange, weird chemicals? So they have a control problem, and they have a financial problem. They'll do anything for filthy lucre. Whereas, you know what, my neighbor that has chickens isn't going to do anything for filthy lucre. They're going to take the eggs, and I'm going to help them with this, and they're going to help me with that. And, you know, we're aligned in our desires and our agendas, and we know each other personally, and we care about each other. And the second we turn things over to big business, we then, you know, create this never-ending lobby scenario. They're lobbying for special privilege or advantage over somebody else. We get into a situation where big business betrays the people. And the Founding Fathers are very concerned about huge corporate business that seem to have increased influence beyond normalcy. When we get back, I want Dr. Scott Bradley to respond to these two things because I think they directly relate to this. Thousands of people dead prematurely due to super ultra-processed foods.
Scott Bradley here. Most Americans are painfully aware that the nation is on the wrong track and in dire straits. Unfortunately, most political pundits only nibble around the edges when they claim to address the issues. Even worse, many of the so-called solutions are simply rewarmed servings of what got us into the mess we currently face. And the politicians think we're so gullible and naive that we'll buy their lies that they have reformed and now understand where they led us astray. Unfortunately, the truth of the matter is that they simply wish to continue to hold power. The solution to America's challenges is found in returning to the timeless principles found in the United States Constitution. My book and lecture series will reawaken in Americans an understanding and love of the principles which made this nation the freest, most prosperous, happiest, and most respected nation on earth. Visit topreservethenation.com and order my book and lectures to begin the restoration of this great nation.
Former Sheriff Richard Mack recounts in his book The Proper Role of Law Enforcement, how he came to realize while working as a beat cop how wrong the all-too-common orientation of police officers is when they think of their job as being to write tickets and arrest people. Richard Mack tells of his personal transformation from by-the-number cop to Constitution-conscious defender of citizen safety and freedoms. Learn what it really means to serve and protect. Purchase your copy at cspoa.org. That's cspoa.org.
Do you know what is great about America? Ask an Immigrant. Ask an Immigrant is a new podcast dedicated to helping Americans, especially our youth, value, appreciate, and be grateful for the freedoms we have here in America. Join host Lydia Wallace-Nuttall as she interviews immigrants from around the world to discover their inspiring personal stories about why they came to America. To learn more about why America is the most prosperous, greatest country in the world, download the Loving Liberty app or go to lovingliberty.net.
Before the break, Sam was pointing out some critically important matters that I think should be wake-up calls to everybody. But I can't let go of this idea that government agencies have facilitated the problem that we've truly got with the ultra-processed, as the headline reads, foods that are out there. I mean, we have, our farmers have been co-opted into this, sadly. You know, the idea that, oh, you know what, you can get this genetically modified seed, so you can put this poison all over your land, and the seed takes it up, and it actually genetically it does better with this kind of poison on it. And so what does it do? It incorporates it into your food supply. You're eating it in your summer picnics. And what we inject into the animals that we're bringing along, the antibiotics, the vaccinations. I mean, I watched a recent review of little chickens that were being vaccinated. It's kind of like, we put it in our own little babies, human babies. When they're born, the first day they start getting jabbed constantly, and the government has facilitated this thing. If you can get on the schedule, if you will, of injectables, if you can get your product on that schedule, it's a multi-billion-dollar process. Every kid before they go into first grade has to get your injection, so on. So everything we're doing, and that's why the Europeans are blocking American meat, for example, that's going there, because of the antibiotics, because of the different kinds of steroidal kinds of things we're putting in, the medicines that we're injecting in them, and the food they're eating. I mean, if the cattle, for example, eat a genetically modified, or the pigs eat a genetically modified food source, how much is that is uptaken into their DNA and into their digestive systems? And I think it's even broader than what this story is. By the way, the story of how many people are killed by those, I think, pales in in actual numbers in comparison to how many are killed each year medically in hospitals, not just by medical
that's closer to 200,
problems.
250,000, they say. When you combine that, you're almost at half a million people. It gets crazy indeed, but there's some good news on the horizon. And you're correct, Doctor, there's the rest of the story to it. So I maintain that we've let the people be divorced from the land by big government, big business, big manipulators. We've basically co-opted farmers by saying things like, hey, use these seeds that we've taken their ability to procreate or follow their natural order, fulfill the measure of their creation. We've taken that out of the mix. We've also then basically had these big corporations that lobby and manipulate for their benefit, for control and for money at the expense of the average American. But there's good news, then there's the rest of the story, as you wisely point out. Here's the good news. Nicole Shanahan is now doing a broadcast called Back to the People. Back to the People is coming to Blaze TV. Yeah, Blaze TV Plus subscribers on Blaze TV will be able to get Nicole Shanahan's new broadcast. And here's what it says it will do. Back to the People, that's the name of the podcast, features what they call in-depth interviews and candid conversations with thought leaders, cultural critics, and the voices shaping the future of the country. Now, here's the deal. They say Shanahan has a particular focus on the Make America Healthy Again movement and has been working tirelessly to help Americans live healthier lives. Now, I find that very interesting. We're going to literally have now a podcast on Blaze TV that really focuses on this. And if they really have honest discussions, she talks about jettisoning the mainstream manipulation of this. You know, the mainstream media is in bed with big pharma, in bed with big government. And so she's saying, hey, we're going to have these conversations that cut through all that. We're going to have candid, real conversations. In my opinion, it's great news. I mean, talk shows like mine would discuss these things from time to time. But if she really creates a weekly TV show that drills into some of this and gets to the bottom of it, we'll really, really have something that can educate the people and change a lot of these discussions. And I look forward to it. Now, I don't think Nicole Shanahan's perfect, but again, it's a great start. We haven't seen anybody doing this yet, so hopefully that will bear fruit. Here's the rest of the story, though, according to the Epoch Times. As you wisely point out, there is a great, great deal of propaganda and manipulation around this. So Lawrence Wilson over at the Epoch Times writes another article that's just so related. It's interesting. Headline says, How Junk Food Took Hold in the United States and what RFK-Jr. is actually doing about it. We have people that are obese in America, and at the same time, they're malnourished because the food that we eat now is not nutrient dense anymore. It's not food. It's, quote, food-like substances. This is how Human Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy described many of the manufactured food products now that are full of calories but low in nutritional value. Strawberry flavoring in food? There's no strawberries. There's no nutrients, Kennedy said. Your body's craving the nutrients, but they're just not there. It doesn't get filled up. It doesn't give you nutrition, but the chemicals make you want to eat more, right? Kennedy, a longtime health advocate, has championed President Donald Trump's call for fresh thinking on nutrition as part of the Make America Healthy Again initiatives. Kennedy has urged states to prohibit the use of supplemental assistance programs like SNAP, basically food stamps, that have high food sugar content, all kinds of chemicals, and no real nutritional value. SNAP is known colloquially as food stamps, but they want to change the food list that's available in this thing of what you can buy on food stamps. Advocates call this a common sense way to promote better food choices. Some critics, though, say the initiative amounts to virtue signaling, a symbolic action that'll have no real effect but virtue signals, and that's it. Kennedy says he hopes it'll fuel a movement toward healthier food consumption that'll reverse obesity, increase nutrition. And anyway, then it goes into the junk food origins. Let's get into that in just a minute, but I want you to be able to respond to a lot of what Bobby Kennedy's saying here first, and then we'll get into the junk food origins, because it's interesting how this all happened in America too. Doctor, go ahead.
Well, we ought to make sure we're on the same page with the listeners. You might have, Nicole Shanahan, people say, I know that name, where do I know it from? Just clarify, she was the vice presidential running mate that Bobby Kennedy tapped to run on his platform when he was running for president. Now, the article states that, Kennedy's promoting Trump's agenda for Make America Healthy Again. I think that's Bravo Sierra. I think that Kennedy started the movement at the presidential level, and Trump adopted it and embraced it and brought Bobby Kennedy on board. I think there's an argument that you can make.
You're right 100%, but you can't say that Trump is on Bobby's movement. You have to say Bobby's on Trump's movement, because that's the way of the media. But you're right, it's propaganda, and there's been a lot of people that have been promoting this before Trump ever even thought about it, Doctor.
Yeah, Trump never went down this. I mean, it's an observable fact based upon, I guess, his body structure. But the fact of the matter is that Bobby Kennedy is promoting this idea. I think it's a very valid, timely matter that needs to be reviewed. I mean, I see, honestly, Sam, I watch these heart-wrenching commercials on TV about my kids are hungry and I am too, and we just are going to die. But you look at them, most of them are probably, if not morbidly obese, they're close. And you say, what the heck happened? Well, it's the idea of nutritionally dense food that we used to have when I was a kid. I mean, I think I knew maybe 2 kids when I was growing up that had an obesity issue, and they were brothers, okay? I think it was more of a either a genetic or it was a propensity to move towards something that was not nutritionally sound. But it was really rare when I was a kid. Most of us, of course, you get the idea. We played outside all day long instead of watching TV or doing our computer thumb games or whatever. But all of these are related to the fact how we've become a sedentary, chemically laden, genetically modified kinds of foods and all these kind of things. And so, and I think Nicole, I think that's one of the things that Kennedy helped instill in her, and she already had a propensity to go that way for this healthy thing. The fact that she's going on Blaze, going to give it a big footprint, I hope. And, the thing that I've seen about the Kennedy Make America Healthy stuff is that there's so much blowback. I mean, you can buy any kind of position you want in the media. And I think that there's, call them trolls, whatever you want, these people that are saying, oh, no, autistic kids, they're such a blessing. We're so glad we got ours. So Bravo Sierra again. I mean, when he's saying, no, we're going to find out why this is happening. And if you've ever known autistic children, it is a horrific burden on the family and society and the child itself. I mean, here are children that can't even function in society.
Let's be clear. Let's separate the fact that, yes, we love them, and yes, they're children of God. That's true. That doesn't change the fact that they've been targeted and people's constitutions have been destroyed. When we get back, I want to tell you how this all happened, right? What's the junk food origins, if you will? How did this occur? And I told you separating us from the land and big corporations are the key to the problem. And the Founding Fathers warned us about big, huge corporations as well. But I'll tell you what happened and how it all went down. Then we'll chat about that with Dr. Scott Bradley. I say it's a great news thing that Back to the People's coming on with Nicole Shanahan. I think that's great news. The Blaze TV, they deserve credit, and I agree. I hope it becomes a massive footprint, and I hope they're truth tellers all the way down the line. But let's talk about it's not food. It's, quote, food-like substances. And let's talk about the junk food origins. We'll do it in seconds on your radio.
Pursuing liberty, using the Constitution as our guide. You're listening to Liberty News Radio.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Rich Thomason. President Trump celebrates the first 100 days of his second term with a big campaign-style rally tomorrow in Macomb County, Michigan, north of Detroit. Almost 100 days in, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt contrasts how federal judges behaved under Biden versus Trump.
The previous administration was allowed to allow 15 million, that we know about, illegal aliens into this country with very little pushback from our judicial branch. But this president is trying to simply enforce our nation's immigration laws and is facing roadblock after roadblock.
At least 4 people killed in one of the latest Russian attacks on Ukraine. This one involved the use of explosive drones and airstrikes. The BBC's Patty McGuire says it has President Trump questioning whether Vladimir Putin really wants to end the bloodshed in Ukraine.
Could the recent meeting between Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky at the Pope's funeral have shifted the course of this conflict? Ukraine's president has repeatedly said he can't accept US recognition of Moscow's control over Crimea, which was illegally annexed 11 years ago. To accept its loss would mark a profound shift in Ukraine's stance and go against its constitution.
And now the Kremlin is declaring a 72-hour ceasefire in Ukraine next week as Russia marks Victory Day in World War II. The truce to run from the start of May 8th, lasting through the end of May 10th, marking the defeat of Nazi Germany in 1945. Utility crews struggling to get the lights back on across large parts of Spain and Portugal. The Spanish electric utility says it could take anywhere from 6 to 10 hours to restore service to large parts of that country. Stocks higher on Wall Street. The Dow is up 270 points. The Nasdaq 70 points higher, and the S&P is up 24. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm.
They told us nothing but lies.
These timeshare thieves out there are terrible.
They bullied us.
Our timeshare is all a scam.
They stole from us. They were thieves.
I was completely taken advantage of.
Hello, I'm Chuck McDowell, founder and CEO of Wesley Financial Group, and I know the tough spot you're in. Are you asking yourself, why did I buy that timeshare? I'll tell you why, because that presentation wasn't a normal sales pitch. It was a show to convince you that timeshare is a great investment. They told you it was available today and today only. They said you're foolish if you don't buy, and unfortunately, you believed them. We get over 3,000 complaints a week from folks just like you that were misled into buying a timeshare. Give us a call. I guarantee if we take you as a client, we will cancel your timeshare or you'll pay nothing.
Call now for your free information kit. 800-989-1771. 800-989-1771. 800-989-1771.
In the medical field, IT security is crucial. Our highly skilled consultants are HIPAA certified and have 20-plus years of experience servicing medical clinics, billing, and supply companies. We offer comprehensive endpoint protection, guarding your computers and servers against all stages of threats. And with our 24/7 monitoring services, you'll never worry about extensive downtime again. Ready to level up your IT support? Call 801-706-6980 today and discover how great IT services can be with managed IT services.
Experience the untamed spirit of the American West with Range Magazine. Each issue is a visual journey featuring award-winning photography and compelling stories that capture the heart of ranching and rural life. Stay informed on the challenges and triumphs of those who live and work on the land. Subscribe today and receive quarterly editions delivered to your doorstep, and join a community that cherishes the enduring legacy of the Western frontier. Visit rangemagazine.com to subscribe.
Why don't we say to the government writ large that they have to spend a little bit less? Anybody ever had less money this year than you had last? Anybody ever having a 1% pay cut? You deal with it. That's what government needs, a 1% pay cut. If you take a 1% pay cut across the board, you have more than enough money to actually pay for the disaster relief. But nobody's going to do that because they're fiscally irresponsible. Who are they? Republicans. Who are they? Democrats. Who are they? Virtually the whole body is careless and reckless with your money. So the money will not be offset by cuts anywhere. The money will be added to the debt, and there will be a day of reckoning. What's the day of reckoning? The day of reckoning may well be the collapse of the stock market. The day of reckoning may be the collapse of the dollar. When it comes, I can't tell you exactly, but I can tell you it has happened repeatedly in history when countries ruin their currency.
Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
All right, we're talking to Dr. Scott Bradley, freedomsrisingsun.com, his website. Q&A's on the Constitution Weekly. Sign up at freedomsrisingsun.com. Also download the Collegiate Series to preserve the nation. It's not food, it's food-like substances, says RFK-JR, and he's right. A lot of these are just chemicals and all kinds of fillers and all kinds of things that they can make a ton of money on and don't do any good for the American people. It's separating the people from the land. It's big corporations at the helm, lobbying and promoting for their agenda. But here's the deal that you need to really understand. Junk food origins, ladies and gentlemen. Kennedy and others have blamed the glut of tasty but vacuous, meaning no nutritional foods, on big tobacco companies. The big tobacco companies entered the food arena about 60 years ago. Beginning in the 1960s, R.J. Reynolds and Philip Morris, then the largest tobacco brands, they started to talk about how horrible smoking was. They wanted to grow. So they started acquiring companies that made sugar-sweetened beverages, Hawaiian Punch, Kool-Aid, Tang, etc. And they started basically marketing that to children. Now, we learned that from the DMJ, formerly the British Medical Journal. Now it's just called the BMJ, British Medical Journal, right? That's where we get a lot of these details. Tobacco executives transferred their knowledge of marketing cigarettes to young people and expanded product lines using colors, flavors, and marketing strategies originally designed for cigarettes, to promote cigarettes, to get you addicted. In May 1962, R.J. Reynolds, director of research, reported on the status of their product developments in an internal memo, believe it or not. And the memo basically says, hey, there's results of taste tests based on these sugary flavored drinks. And they compared, listen to this, they compared artificial flavoring being compared to chewing tobacco and cane sugar to cigarettes. Anyway, then they call it ultra-processed food addiction, a little known and growing problem. Now we got a big problem. Anyway, RFK-JR has an early mandate to try to tackle this, to get to the bottom of this thing, but R.J. Reynolds and Philip Morris eventually went deeper into the food business. They own major brands like General Kraft, General Foods, all these other things. And they basically put the strategies in there to make sure that things were highly addictable. Researchers at the University of Kansas found that food companies owned by tobacco companies were much more likely than others to market highly palatable, addictive foods. They call them hyperpalatable foods, if you will, because they're just great for your palate. They taste incredible, but they contain more of the things that make food taste good but aren't healthy. Fat, sugar, sodium, massive amounts of carbohydrates. The list just goes on and on. And this is from this university's, they call it the Center for Addiction and Treatment, is working on this. These foods also have fewer of the nutrients that make us feel satisfied. So bottom line is you're full, but you're hungry. As a result, they say, hyperpalatable foods can be difficult to stop eating even when we're full. Yeah, they say tobacco companies have appeared to selectively moved these hyperpalatable foods into our society. In 1988, 20 years later, after all their research happened and after they started buying themselves into these companies, they ratcheted it up. And so that's triggered a, quote, industry-wide shift, the researchers wrote. And basically the bottom line is, hey, it doesn't matter if it's healthy or not. It's marketed, and the result, according to Kennedy, is an obesity crisis that threatens the health and safety of all Americans. We have people that are obese, but at the same time, they're malnourished. He said nearly 70% of Americans now are either overweight or obese, and don't think that it doesn't affect around the world. because, hey, obesity rates have tripled over the last 60 years. Americans, they say, are not alone in this. More than 60% of Europeans are obese or overweight now as well. That's according to the National Institutes of Health. Anyway, it goes on and on and on, Doctor. It's a great Epoch Times article, but it really highlights the problems here and how it all kind of began and how it occurred. And I kind of point at these big corporations that have their own agendas and then separating people from the land. That's what's got us into this mess, Doctor.
Well, as you point out, we've been scammed again. I mean, we have been had. We have been lied to. But, you know, that's pretty much the method in here. We've got to have a spirit of discernment. Let's get close to God and stay there, you know, and be able to discern truth from error. But you know, it's interesting to me. This is, I mean, why didn't we expect this? You look at drug dealers all across the world, everywhere for centuries, have laced their product with stuff that kept buyers coming back. I mean, look at cannabis today. The street dealers are putting stuff in it that causes people to say, I got to have some more of that stuff. He gave me some good stuff last time, you know, my dime bag or whatever, you know, nickel bag. You know, the fact of the matter is they lace it in. That's the way cigarettes were done. In World War II, they put addictive chemicals in there that quickly got our soldiers and sailors and Marines to be addicted to the tobacco. They brought the product home. And the addiction home, and they were able to market it using doctors to help, you know, promote the stuff. But the bottom line is they put this stuff in it, knowing full well that they'll have repeat customers, and that's how our society has been tainted. I mean, whether it's educationally, politically, food-wise, religious-wise, I mean, we get kind of scammed. It's a huckster kind of world we're in right now, and I think we do need a lot more discernment. And this idea of going back closer to the farm and draw your family close together. I mean, sooner or later, and I hope it happens sooner than later, because if you go so far down the pipe, it's really hard to swim back upstream to the place we need to be. So take kids out of the public education, get away from the processed foods, quit this institutionalized religion, the idea of politics that you get a savior that wears a certain letter after their name. It isn't the case. We've only got one savior, and you say, well, we got to believe in other people. We'll start figuring out which ones are the right ones, because most of them are scamming you. That's the big problem. I feel really bad to have to say that, but it seems pretty accurate to me.
Yeah, and I support RFK's attempt to highlight this and Nicole Shanahan's attempt to highlight this. I support that 100%. What they want to debate this, though, is relating to the SNAP or the food stamp program. And they want to basically say, hey, let's create a list of good foods and a list of bad foods. And let's make by law the good foods you can buy with your food stamps, the bad foods you can't. And we hope to change it. Others say, no, we have to have a whole, societal 1984 push where the I can't remember what they used to call the tele-TV thing where they could watch you both directions. They want to watch you and force everybody to do the exercise programs and this and that. And they want to believe that the answers are in government. And I want you to just know, I appreciate RFK Jr. and Nicole and others, highlighting this. And I think it's good to know the history and good to be educated for sure. And anything that the general government can do to, be involved to some degree makes some sense. But the problem becomes you violate the Constitution in the process, number one. And number two, people have got to decide this for themselves. Look, if I buy land and I start a garden or I start a co-op and I start to work with people and create a community and I have, food that we grow and we know the origins of, we can take a lot of this back. This reminds me a lot of the homeschooling movement, Doctor. A lot of people complain about education, but I don't even care. Shut it down tomorrow. Shut down the government's involvement in all this nutrition stuff. Americans can understand, hey, the closer it is to your farm to table, the better off it's going to be for you. And the more you trust the farmers to say, I don't want all that toxins in my meat, I'm not injecting my cows with all these things, or I'm not going to be using genetically modified food. I've got a good friend, his name is Caleb Warnock. And Caleb Warnock is like the heirloom seeds expert. Okay, people need to buy real seeds. People need to go back to what works, and we can do this ourselves. It takes money, it takes time, it takes effort, but I say the answer is to not let the government separate us from the land and to simply take the corporate world out of our food. If I have a neighbor that grows eggs and another neighbor that raises cows, another neighbor that has milk, another, just think of the good that I can do. Let's go ahead and skip the break. This is too good. All I'm telling you is there's so much that we could do, Doctor, and we don't have to just wait for Bobby Kennedy to do it. Now, we can support Bobby Kennedy. I commend him for bringing attention to this issue. But if we're not careful, what we'll do is just get mired down in the arguments for and against, and we'll be off on a tangent. Okay, I say dismiss them. Take this back. You know what? Get raw honey from your neighbor. Get, go in on a cow and buy a cow and put real meat in your freezer where you know who handled the cow, who raised this beef or whatever. Get, a co-op and get involved in a garden. Get in your community. Get out of the cities. And most of this we're going to have to take back ourselves, Doctor.
The much of the origin can be attributed back to government business facilitation or partnerships. And that's kind of how we got our food pyramid kind of stuff that they started putting out. Agriculture would say to government, hey, look, we need to tell people they need this much grain, this much meat, this much dairy, whatever, okay? And the government facilitated it through an unconstitutional effort in the FDA and the agriculture departments. And so they started, they listened to what the the industry was telling them, and they put these food triangles together, or pyramids. And the fact of the matter is that it was a fascist movement. Let's just call it what it is. Government and business collaborated to foist something on the American people. And so we got into the problem because of government facilitating what big business was trying to promote and make money with, and it was all done unconstitutionally to begin with. I mean, this idea that, you got to be told by government how much of this or that or the other you can have. How much vitamin C should you have, Sam? I mean, stop and think about this for a second.
Well, do you want to ask the government or do you want to ask Sam Bushman?
That's the thing, is that everybody says, this is FDA approved. This is the minimum daily requirement stuff.
Shut down the FDA. Their approval means nothing. They're in bed with these cartel cigarette companies and tobacco companies, Doctor. They really are.
The cartel cigarette companies have become the cartel processed food companies. I mean, you just heard the genesis of that thing. They could see that maybe someday this tobacco stuff won't be quite the profit margin we thought it was going to. Let's get into something else. Let's use the same marketing tactics. Let's use the same addictive processes. Let's use this, building your health with chemistry kind of thing, to the point that it's really, like I said earlier, you get these people that are saying, oh my goodness, we're starving to death. And you say, my heavens, if you lost 60 pounds, you'd maybe be better off, And that's the whole deal, is that we get scammed constantly. Start using your heads. Stop listening to the talking heads, I guess we could say. I don't know. It's just bizarre to me how far we've fallen.
Well, there you go. But what do you think about my recommendations and solutions, Doctor? I know we all want to wait for Bobby to solve it all for us. And I appreciate the efforts of Bobby. This is not a downing of Bobby Kennedy. I think he's right to highlight this. I think it needs to be discussed. I welcome, a lot of what they're doing. But at the same time, I kind of say, okay, wait a minute, folks. You can't just rely on your government to do it for you. Donald and Bobby can't get it done. But, Dr. Bradley, I can go in on a local co-op. I can help create a community garden. I can learn to grow in my backyard or in my windowsills different foods. And they used to call them victory gardens back in the day. I can do a victory garden and have victory over this. I can work with people who have chickens and get eggs and buy, chemical-free eggs or whatever you want to say. I can work with farmers and get milk. I can work with people and get a cow or a pig, and put it in my freezer where I know the origins of the beef. And I think we're going to have to do that. We're going to have to get closer to the land. We're going to have to think Victory Garden-esque over these big evil corporations that want to destroy our health. And I think the more we do that, and even if you live in a city, you can find people that are out in the country that you can say, hey, I'll help, with paying for some of the feed and some of the upkeep of the fences and whatever. And can I work, how can I get a cow alongside yours, or how can I buy meat from you? And I think we need a big, serious resurgence of this. And individuals can do this. It's like homeschooling. I don't have to wait for the government to shut down education. I never put a single kid in the government school, and I never will. Okay, we can do this, doctor, but it takes understanding. It takes solutions. It takes out-of-the-box thinking. It takes hard work and creativity. But that's what Americans used to be known for, doctor. Can we prove that we're known for it again? That would be my question.
We want to offload decision-making to somebody else, and it's really tragic.
And work.
But
right? And work. We don't have anybody else to do the work for us. We just want to wake up and put a box of Captain Crunch on our table, and we're good. But I'm telling you, it's killing you, people.
It is indeed. But here's part of the problem, too, though. I mean, you got to be awake and aroused to the sense of your awful situation an awful lot of the time. Utah, and I'm not so sure what's happening this spring, but historically in recent years, they have said, we encourage our people to have gardens. And in fact, you should be proud of what you're doing. Here's a place you can go and register your garden and keep us informed about what you're growing and what your harvests are and all this kind of stuff. It's another effort of government intervention. And the government intervention is never going to be something that benefits us. It will not happen. Can you imagine telling, some government agent, look, I've got 50 tomatoes on my vines right now. And I hearken back, in my master's program, there was a professor, the only relatively soundly founded, principled in terms of government professor. My master's program was a public administration program. But at any rate, he talked about during the Depression, his father, who had been a sheep farmer, loved his sheep, the good shepherd kind of thing. They were his kids, Anyway, the government intervened. The government said we can't have this much mutton on the market. And they drove
Hold on a minute. Whoa. Why can't you have that much mutton on the market? Either people will buy it or they won't, doctor. It'll take care of itself.
That's the issue, though. But you know what? We want to set prices. And if you delivered your mutton to the market, it might drive the prices down because it increases the amount of supply. Okay,
that's
but
fantastic.
You say, wait a minute, people are starving because they can't afford mutton. Anyway, this whole total circuitous reasoning that destroys everything.
That's right.
They drove this guy's flock, herd, whatever you want to call it, of sheep off a cliff and had them die at the bottom of the cliff, some with broken legs and everything else. The dad was suicidal, basically, that this happened to his kids, if you will. But the government intervened. Back in the big cities, you talk about having a few chickens nowadays. Well, during FDR, they came up with this idea that, you know what, we just can't have the market flooded with more eggs or poultry or whatever. So you can only have so many chickens. And the government literally came in the cities where the people were trying to, maybe supplement their income or their diet or whatever with eggs and poultry, and they confiscated chickens. They went into your chicken coop, counted, and they took the excess you had. These kinds of things, it goes along with what Stalin did with the kulaks, on a little bit, personal, kind of smaller basis. But Stalin was killing the kulaks that would not let the collectivization of their farms occur as he tried to make sure that full communism was implemented. We were doing it on a fascist level and a smaller communist level in the United States. And so government has been at the forefront of destroying liberty, and that's why the Founding Fathers established such a limited and bounded government that said, these are your delegated authorities, no farther, you can't play outside the boundaries of this sandbox. And what's happening nowadays is everybody wants to be, well, I got the stamp of approval of this government agency or whatever. I registered with the state of Utah, my garden. I'm doing my civic best to show people how it ought to be done. No, do it and enjoy it. I got kids like you talk about. I got one daughter, for example, her and her family, with the other families they're involved with, each family goes and milks the cow once a week, okay? I mean, you have to actually put some skin in the game on this thing, people. and then make certain that they're not injectables, that are, basically fueling whatever you're growing. And you look at what you put on fertilization, it's about 4 chemicals. And so our nutritionally dense food that used to be isn't anymore, because you got 4 major chemicals, and that's it that we put into the stuff we grow. We got to start getting smarter along these lines instead of just letting somebody else dictate it for us.
Well, what do you think of my solutions, though? You got to get close to the land. You got to basically be in charge and create communities. You got to create barter communities where people, support one another. Hey, why do I want to support Philip Morris that owns the chicken company when my buddy, raises and makes chicken meat available for me, or pig or cow or whatever, Hey, why can't I support my local guy that's built chicken coops? And we got to learn to work together, closer to the ground, closer to the people, closer to. And I'm convinced with very simple foods, you can make it taste great and be safe and be healthy and good and promote your local community. And it just takes direct effort, Doctor.
Oh, no question. They're excellent suggestions. And honestly, it's so satisfying to eat something that not just mentally you're saying, oh, this stuff's chemical free, but it has flavor. It has wonderful textures. I mean, you go back to the basics and you say, holy cow, look what I've been missing all these years.
So my daughter went to Mexico a few years ago, and she ate an apple and an orange, and I can't remember what other fruits or whatever. And she's like, I've never known fruit to taste so good. For me, it tastes like all waxy and this and that. And she's like, this fruit is phenomenal. See, other countries do way more of this than we do, Doctor.
Oh, there's no question. In fact, the European Union has been criticized for not letting American meat and American corn and American, just grains and everything else like that. We harvest our wheat with Roundup, for crying out loud, to some degree. It's not 100% across our whole market. But, okay, you say, well, it's not genetically modified wheat because the Roundup kills it. But if you spray it on a couple of days before you're going to harvest it, is it on the grain or not?
Yes.
You have to ask yourself that.
Yes.
I mean,
clear, resounding yes.
But the corn you grow, you spray the fields before you put the corn in the ground to keep the weeds down, and it's a genetically modified corn so that it says, hey, I like this Roundup stuff. It soaks it in, it puts it right in. It's a genetic thing. I can't help but think that, and I don't know the causation of a lot of things. I think there might be a collaboration of many disasters we're doing, whether it's the vaccines or whether it's the genetically modified food or whether it's the chemistry we're putting into our processed foods or whether it's the air we're breathing. I just barely, about 2 seconds ago.
The answer to your question is whether. The answer is yes.
Yeah, the chemical trails. This is it's a text that came to me just seconds before we started talking about this. Maybe somebody's listening to us. But anyway, we're ingesting this stuff. There's poisons in the air. There's poisons in the water. There's poisons in the food. There's poisons in the polluting philosophies. I mean, religion, politics, business. And it's like, holy cow, what have we come to?
Yeah, take our food crisis and apply it to every aspect of society. And the more you spend time with your family and your loved ones in your local community, the less you turn off the corporate garbage, whether it be the media or government school or, false churches. The issues are the same. You've got to take back your heart, your mind, your soul, your food, your society, your community. We the people can do this, folks, but it's going to take education, self-determination, and a lot of hard work, and I pray that we the people can get it done. Dr. Scott Bradley, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Keep your God-given intelligence cooking along.
Amen to that. freedomsrisingsun.com if you want Q&As on the Constitution. If you want the Collegiate Series to Preserve the Nation and more, that's freedomsrisingsun.com. You are listening to the one and only nationally syndicated Liberty Roundtable live talk show, syndicated by the Loving Liberty Radio Networks, lovingliberty.net. God save the Republic of the United States of America.